I think the first celebrity that wore Rastah was French Montana. Everybody's like, whoa, what just happened?
Let's talk about Zain. In terms of your own growth, how have you grown in this journey?
The more time that I can buy back to focus on the strategy, the vision, the creative direction, the more time I'm spending on those things, the more I can empower my team to do the things that are mundane to me but are still very important to the business. It's a balancing act of creating and commerce. And I think if you over leverage one or the other too much, you kind of lose the essence of the brand, because it's not a merchandising play. Consumers are selfish. We buy things because we want to feel good. This is what I'm betting on. 2026, the impact of celebrity endorsements will have a much smaller coefficient. The impact of a community story, founder story, will have a much bigger impact.
To me, one of the most interesting things about Zain and Rastah is that it is one of the most consequential brands to come out of Pakistan. Rastah ने एक नई category create की है for Pakistani brands, which is that you can be entirely Pakistani, build from Pakistan, but be known as an international brand and reach out to some of the biggest tier A celebrities in the world. ये episode जो हमने record की है, इसमें हमने एक wide range of issues पे बात की है around this specific niche and these kind of companies. This entire episode is made for three kinds of audiences. Number one, जो लोग अभी एक स्ट्रीटवेयर ब्रांड पाकिस्तान से बना रहे हैं या बनाना चाह रहे हैं. नंबर टू, प्रोफेशनल्स जो फैशन या अपैरल इंडस्ट्री में है और वो किस तरह से अपने आप को लेवल अप कर सकते हैं. नंबर थ्री, जस्ट क्यूरियस पीपल, स्टूडेंट्स एंड पीपल हु वुड से इवेंचुअली वांट टू वर्क एट रास्ता एट सम पॉइंट. सो आई ट्रूली होप यू एंजॉय दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन. वी वेंट इनटू nuts and bolts of how this business works and as many details as what kind of metrics to track and why they are relevant. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation, which is brought to you by Kiss Bazaar. Zain, thanks so much for finally doing this. We've been in touch over a couple of few months. I'm so glad we got to do this. So in my research for this conversation, I came across the Rastah story many times, right? So I've interacted with Rastah on my own as a potential customer, but I've also in my research of this done the story. So ab story mein nahi jayenge zyada, like, because now I think the point of this conversation is to understand you more as an operator, someone who has like built this and what happens behind the scenes. That's what I'm more interested in, and also the future of this industry or this sector, right? So if you could just take me through what has changed Rastah over the years. So अगर मैं Rastah की story को 3 chapters में divide करूँ, 0 to 1, or say 1 to 10, and then 10 to today, अगर मैं इन 3 chapters में उसको करूँ, what has changed mostly with the company, the product, and more importantly with you?
That's a very good question. I think if we roll it back to 2019, where we sort of started, I didn't think that it would become what it has become today, because initially the brand had a very different viewpoint of operating, which was from a place of, okay, let's just put out t-shirts and hoodies. And I didn't realize that there was so much potential and demand for a brand that sat in that contemporary or luxury space to grow. And we realized this not even in 2019, but in 2020, that there is a market for something like this that sort of exists. And uski mujhe realization is tarah se hui ki when I was studying abroad, numerous times, actually once was a trip to LA, and the other time was when I was doing an exchange program in Italy. I used to walk into stores and I used to see a lot of the really nice products that I really liked were made in Pakistan, made in Bangladesh. And I was like, why can we not sort of be the owners of our own story or the architects of our own story? And I always give this example that some of the best footballs in the world are made in Pakistan, but the brand is always Nike, Adidas. And फिर मुझे ये realization हुई कि यार, we've always been very good at manufacturing, but we've never been good at sort of vertically integrating into owning those brands and telling our own stories. And that's where like sort of the idea of, okay, creating like a high-end brand sort of came into existence, starting from just t-shirts and hoodies. And I remember very vividly back in, I think it was late 2019 or early 2020, when I spoke to my business partners and I was like, okay, we need to raise the prices of our products dramatically. And they were like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And the reason behind that was that I realized that if we can create a brand that people can resonate with, then we can charge a premium for the quality that we put out there, the story, the craft, and everything, because there's going to come a point in time where we will be competing with a lot of other brands, and we don't want to be sitting in a place where we're just a domestic brand competing on price. And lo and behold, that's what's happening now. You have a bunch of other streetwear brands, and had we not made the conscious decision to go towards the contemporary or luxury route, we would have been competing on price and we would not have been able to protect our gross margins. And that was sort of the early days of just sort of building that out, which was a massive struggle and a massive grind. Lots of backlash locally as well. Why is this brand expensive? This, that, slow years, slow growth. And I guess the pivotal point was getting that semblance of international recognition. I think the first celebrity that wore Rastah was French Montana.
Oh.
And that was kind of like a big thing for us because everybody's like, whoa, what just happened? And then we had this Forbes and this Vogue feature that kind of just like sort of, you know, propelled the brand towards the direction where it's sort of in now. And specifically, if we break it down, the first few years was all about finding the identity of the brand and not thinking about operational friction, not thinking about what the ops would look like, but just developing the brand DNA and identity. And that was, I wouldn't say the hard part. The hard part was between 2021 and 2023, where we realized that we actually have a business on our hands, and then figuring out, okay, how do we actually, you know, start to scale this up? And for that, I realized that we really needed to start building a good team for that. And one of the first few things that we focused on was that we need to have our pulse on manufacturing, on craft. Because we're in Pakistan and because the ethos of the brand is made in Pakistan around craft and manufacturing. So I actually taught myself the ropes of the industry and the ropes of this business by throwing myself within the ocean of manufacturing. So I knew that I had to be very technically sound in what I was doing. And I think that was a very, very strong sort of thing that we did. And now we're in a place where we have the brand on lock. We have the margin profile and everything on lock. And now it's just about how do we get to that $10, $20 million mark sustainably whilst keeping the brand intact, but also in a way where the essence of the brand doesn't die off. So it's a balancing act of creating and commerce. And I think if you over leverage one or the other too much, you kind of lose the essence of the brand, because it's not a merchandising play.
Yeah.
Outfitters, Zara, all of these other brands are merchandising brands where it's all about as many SKUs as possible in as short of a period of time, test. Rastah is very different, where it's more so world building. So the moves that we make today have to make sense in accordance to what we want to do 1 year or 2 year or 3 years from now. And we were talking before about what does a Rastah store look like? What do our future collaborations look like? What does the product look like 3 years from now? And everything that we do now is kind of like laying the chessboard for what we do 2-3 years from now.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
But in terms of your own growth, so Zain, let's talk about Zain, right? How have you grown in this journey? Like, what was it that you were doing a lot before? So I would also like want to, because I think I read about you being this, so someone who's just starting and then someone who's growing as a company. Your role has changed, right? And you spoke about delegation as well. So how has that evolved for you? Talk to me a bit more about that. Like, what were the things that you are now delegating, and what are the things that you would never delegate?
Well, when I first started off, I was pretty much doing everything, right? From yarn procurement to meeting manufacturers, to going to our weavers, to block printing, to marketing, to CS, order packing, fulfilling. That was like the early days. But in due time, you start to realize there's different phases of delegation. And there's the $0 to $250,000 phase, which is, hey, you got to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And you got to be on the gauntlet for that. And the onus is on you to do everything that you can possibly, because there's nobody else, right?
Yeah.
And then 250 to 500 is what can I operationalize so that I spend the most amount of time on the things that I'm good at. And at that point, it was design and marketing. And so what I did was, the first few people that I brought in were literally to help pick back orders, do some of the outsourcing production things that I used to do myself. And slowly, you start to realize that to scale, a lot of it is not just finding the right people to fit into your team, but as an operator, you start to find out what are the things that you're good at and what are the things that you're passionate about. And then it starts to become a game of buying back time. And 500 to $1 million is a lot about putting the right people in the right room, in the right environment. And I think at that point we had I would say, I think we had 5, 6 different employees. And what I did completely delegate was most of the manufacturing, CS, some parts of ops, but I had a pulse on everything at the same time. And the tricky part is creating a culture where you've created sort of a self-policing structure. Because and I always say this, that startups के अंदर जो एक HR वाला culture है ना, वो startups को मार देता है, because that slows things down.
What do you mean by HR culture?
What I mean by HR culture is very stringent policies and rules, because what it does is that it stifles innovation and just creativity and growth in that sense. When you have way too many checks and balances, what happens is that you add friction within that process. And you want that process not to sort of feel like a line or like a linear line or whatnot. It needs to be sort of this cubicle mesh where everybody is kind of in sync. And it's very akin to how a sports team would function. If you put the right people in the right environment, with the right culture, with the right incentives, what happens is that people start to find stakes to win for themselves, and they want to be a part of a team and to win. And that was a big learning for me. And I remember very vividly that there was a time where I would do a lot of hand holding with my employees. And I realized that was the wrong way to do it. The right way to do it is to put the right people in the right room, tell them what they need to do to succeed, and let them figure it out. And then create a culture of immense accountability, whereby if you put 5 people in a room, you don't have to go ask them whether or not this is done or not. When you put A players in a room together, they simply won't allow for a B or a C player to enter that room because of the fact that they've created this camaraderie and this self-policing structure. And then when you go beyond $1 million, there's another layer to it, which is how do you now bring a semblance of structure to this chaos that you've created? And that, a lot of that is, as a CEO or as an operator, then it becomes a game of what I said, buying back time. The more time that I can buy back to focus on the things that I am good at, which is strategy, the vision, and the creative direction, the more time I'm spending on those things, the more I can empower my team to do the things that are mundane to me, but are still very important to the business. And even within this stage, I feel like the presence of very typical HR policies just completely fall apart.
Yeah.
And what I sort of mean by that is that typical HR policies are HR sets rules and guidelines and SOPs, working hours, incentives, when an employee grows, who gets hired and whatnot. And that system just doesn't work in a startup. And I remember we had someone sort of guiding us on HR and whatnot, and they created this weird chart, okay, like, you know, ye deputy ye hai, ye is tarah hai, iski salary itni honi chahiye, itne saal baad iski salary itni badhegi. And I was like, that is just like, that makes no sense, because in a startup, you want high performing people, and you don't want people that, you know, you tell them, "Kiya haan, theek hai." After you reach this arbitrary sort of name for a role that you've created, deputy head of whatever the hell, आपकी 10% सैलरी बढ़ जाएगी. मेरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में मेरा तो रूल ये है कि अगर आपकी साल में सिर्फ 10 से 20% सैलरी बढ़ रही है, it means you're not good enough and you should probably leave. And the way we sort of do it is that I have immense open accountability. We're in a conference room where if we're having a meeting with a team, I will look at a few employees, and in front of everybody, I would say, okay, these are your KPIs. Can we have a gentleman's agreement that, let's say, for example, Talha's KPI is for this semester, Jan to June, is that arbitrary number. That, hey Talha, you want to grow, you got to have landed gross margin sitting at between 70 and 80%, and our gym ROI needs to go from 3 to 3.8. And if you do that, then you can expect a 50 or 60% increase. And that is set in front of everybody. So there's like immense accountability, and it's like, if you do what you've said you're gonna do, then I will hold up my end of the bargain, but you have to hold up your end of the bargain as well. And the way we started to sort of, during this phase, reward our employees as well was through collective KPIs. And one of the KPIs that, especially in fashion, which is super important to us, is retention metrics.
Okay.
So collectively, if the team can achieve a certain contribution margin target for repeat customers, and retention is something जिसमें हर किसी का हाथ है, because if you've managed to retain customers, T-boy का भी हाथ है, warehousing वालों का भी हाथ है,
सही बात है.
And everybody in the organization knows, if we hit this number, we unlock this bonus pool. So suddenly you have everybody working towards a common goal. They have their individual KPIs as well, and you've managed to create a structure where you're buying time to do the things that are more important to you. And the biggest mistake that I used to make was going in and micromanaging things. And I've stopped doing that like entirely, like going in and micromanaging ki aise karo. It's much better if you let the team figure it out themselves. And it's also much better to create an environment where ideas win and hierarchy loses. And that's where HR sort of crumbles as well, because within traditional HR, hierarchy wins, ideas lose, where there's a chain of command and those ideas need to pass through a chain of command. And I typically have a policy where if we're sitting in a conference room, You could be the most junior employee ever, but if you come up with an idea, you have the complete freedom to go out and execute it. And if anyone from the senior leadership wants to say no to that, they need to have a very good reason to say no to that. And then that creates like this structure of experimentation, accountability, and that's what we're kind of sort of working on now in terms of growth and scale.
That's super interesting, because what I'm hearing is there is this number one radical transparency as well.
Yeah.
Because the company is super transparent about what it needs, as opposed to just telling me what to do. It's telling me where the company needs to be, and then it's giving me an exact, measurable, and observable target.
Yeah.
It's not like something, do a better job.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very like, listen, this number that you see here, this is how this number is calculated, and this number needs to go from this to this.
Yeah.
And then you go ahead and now you figure it out how you're going to do it. And that's not something you will get involved in.
No.
That's very cool. But in the middle, you mentioned a couple of things about the key metrics in your line of work, right? In this business. What are they? Like, how does Rastah measure success?
I think there's two sides to this equation. There's the brand building and the world building side, and then there's the business side, which for me fundamentally is a overview of unit economics. Before I get to that, I'll focus on the first side. And for us, if we look at creativity, how we measure success is, are we creating products? Are we creating collections? Are we creating experiences that we can look back to and say that, hey, we did something that genuinely made us uncomfortable, where we went out and actually created something that we thought was new, authentic, and we were able to tell the story of the brand through our own lens. And were people able to sort of resonate with it as well? And it's sort of a balancing act, because a lot of the times the most creative things that you do don't have a direct impact to the commerce side of things. So I'll give you an example. You might create a long coat that took 6 months to make, and Seth Rollins wears it, and it's super expensive, and it sells for a very high price. But that doesn't make you money. But doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. That's the ultimate Socratic question that we have at the table. You have this very expensive products that are purely creative led, but don't drive revenue. But they drive visibility, attention, and they create an identity for the brand. And what in turn ends up happening is that those creative experiences then have the T-shirts and hoodies sell, a lot more. And it's this weird thing where you do something on the creative side that doesn't have a direct, relation to the sales, but then the commerce side of it is impacted as well. And
I think the example I can think of is Victoria's Secret. They would make that $2 million bra, right?
Yeah.
And they would put like jewels on it and everything, etc.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not for sale, but
exactly.
But it set the price and it set the value of the brand and estimation quite high, right?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you sort of have to realize that Rastah is a creative world-building brand. We have designers that come work for us because we allow them to create whatever they want to create. Otherwise, they can go work at, XYZ brands, which are merchandising plays. And if we don't allow them that space to create, then we lose the essence of what the brand is.
I actually, before we get into the metrics again, I'm actually really, because you've used the word, like the term word building, like a few times. And I really want to understand, I understand that from a video games perspective, right? So if I'm playing a video game, I know that's world building because that's a different world. But in fashion brand, what does that mean? Also, what's the difference between a fashion brand, or would you say Rastah is more of a cultural movement as opposed to a fashion brand? Is there a difference, or would you say? I want to unpack this a little bit.
I definitely think there's a difference, and I wouldn't say that we're just a fashion brand. I would say that this is a brand that is more experiential, and this is a brand that is trying to create an identity and an image for itself and also for its consumers, and have a sense of DNA and relatability where the consumers can connect to it. Because at the end of the day, consumers buy things because consumers are selfish. Let's put it out there. We buy things because we want to feel good.
Yeah.
A consumer, at the end of the day, does not give a rat's ass for why Zain made something or what Zain feels about this. A consumer cares about how a certain product or a certain part of the brand makes them feel.
Yes.
And unlocking that is super important. And if you can create a brand where people buy into that brand and then they feel a certain way, then you've really sort of unlocked the code. And that feeling a certain way is very much tied to the world building part of it. If we were a brand that was just making products, why would anybody want to spend so much money on, a t-shirt or a hoodie or a jacket? It's not just for the product. It's because they're buying into something where they feel a certain way. And it's not, I used to operate from this lens. मुझे याद है जब मैं शुरू में collections खुद से design करता था, I used to get very angry कि यार लोग इन reasons की वजह से क्यों नहीं खरीद रहे. मैंने इस जैकेट के पीछे अपनी बचपन की कहानी लिखी और कोई इस चीज़ को समझ क्यों नहीं रहा, और ये वाली जैकेट क्यों नहीं बिक रही, ये मेरी फेवरेट थी, इसमें मैंने सबसे ज़्यादा पीसेस भी बनाए. And I realized that at the end of the day, consumers are going to buy what they want to buy because of how it makes them feel. And tying the product to the feeling to this world that you're trying to build is the biggest part of that puzzle. I promise you, if let's say we did a launch next month or 2 months from now, and we just put out a collection, and the collection was amazing, the products were amazing, but there was no sort of effort from our part to create a story or a narrative behind it with the consumer in mind, it wouldn't sell as well, because consumers are buying into a perceived identity of themselves. At the end of the day, the clothes that we wear are an effort to sort of have us look at ourselves in a different way, or transform, or have the world look at us in a very different way. And that comes down to what I said initially, where consumers are very selfish. We want to craft an identity of our own.
What do you think people who buy Rastah are trying to communicate to the world? Like, what is it that most, in your opinion, Rastah consumers are feeling when they buy your product?
That's a very good question, and that's something that we've tried to tap into a lot. And there's different personas. So in advertising and in marketing and even in product development, we talk about personas.
Yeah.
So you have different buckets of personas. एक persona ये है कि पाकिस्तान में people just want to buy Rastah because of the fact that it's a value signal. And it's as crude and crass as that.
कि मैं 30,000 रुपए की hoodie पहना हूँ.
Yeah, and that is becoming more beneficial and apparent for us as these other, I wouldn't call them copycat, but like other streetwear brands. Imagine, you have like 50 streetwear brands, 4-5,000 रुपए की वो सारी चीजें बेच रहे हैं, and Rastah जो है वो 30-35-40,000 की hoodie बेच रहा है. In an environment like that, if you're wearing a Rastah hoodie compared to XYZ, you suddenly have an immense value signal that, hey, I spent this much to get this product. Ek persona ye hai. The other persona is people are buying into the brand because they genuinely care about the design ethos behind it and the level of craftsmanship that goes into it. And that's a completely different kind of persona. And then there's a persona of a lot of consumers, jo ki buy hamare customers and non-South Asians, that want to buy a product because they feel like it's completely unique and different. We've had so many customers that email us or message us, or when we do pop-ups, they come in and they say, hey man, whenever I buy or wear Rastah, I literally have people stop me on the street and say, where did you get that from? So for them, it's like this reinforcement of identity building where I am wearing something that is alleviating my identity and is making me look good and is getting me a lot of compliments
Also
as well.
signaling that I have taste. And
Yeah.
I'm more like culturally attuned where I'm trying to get something that's a craft from Pakistan,
Yeah.
which is another, like, not super well known across the world
Yeah.
like that, right? Okay, that's quite interesting. But is this something you thought in the beginning would work, or you stumbled upon it? Like, what were the early users like versus today? Like, because I remember at one point, Rastah got a lot of hate.
A lot of hate.
KG आप बहुत महंगी चीजें बेच रहे हैं, लाइक यार दिमाग खराब है, 50,000 रुपए का फलाना दे रहे, वो दे रहे, right?
Yeah.
So how, and now it's a status symbol instead.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Like, have you seen that change, or like,
Yeah. And listen, it was always, that negative reaction was always bound to happen.
Sahi hai, haan.
Because if in an economy and in an industry that is largely dominated by merchandising brands, you suddenly come in and you're selling products for 40, 50,000 rupees, there's going to be backlash. But अब आप देखो ईस्टर्न मार्केट में वो बैकलैश एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता.
थोड़ा करता है, बट हाँ फिर भी लाइक आई
छोटे
सी
level
ऑन
पे.
ट्विटर वो एक स्क्रीनशॉट आता है
Yeah.
और जी उसमें बोलते हैं ये तो शलवार कमीज 80,000 रुपए की है, नॉर्मल शलवार कमीज है, like people someone is hating on it.
Not at the scale where it becomes dialogue and rhetoric.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Not at that scale. Like you in the Eastern market, you have very expensive brands,
Yeah.
but then you also have very budget brands as well.
course.
It was a new phenomena for the space that we were trying to get into. And I think that foreseeing that was super important, because you kind of have to have you kind of have to have an ear to the ground, but also a gut check, because in the early days consumers don't necessarily know what they want. You kind of have to guide them towards that. And in the early days, that was sort of the bet that I was making, that, hey, we need to do what we think is right, and we need to create an amazing product and an amazing experience. And if we do that, over time, people will see what this brand stands for and the kind of products that it's making. And like I said, the kind of world that it's creating. Abhi to brand ko I think 6 saal hue hain. And in the future, there's going to be retail stores, more pop-ups, collaborations, category expansions, and that's going to all add into the idea of that concept of world building that we talked about, which then again feeds into the consumer's need to feel a certain way. And that's why we shoot some of the content that we shoot.
Yeah, it's
these
actually
cinematic
really
videos
good,
and
yeah,
whatnot. Because we're trying to create this DNA and world for the brand where I want people to not just buy into the product, but also the brand. And it's a very tricky balancing act to do that.
So you've spoken in this, like, about the community that you have, right? People who identify with Rastah, like it, and you have repeatedly spoken about how community is literally your main moat. For this business, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be just a product. It's not just going to be anything else. So talk to me more about what Rastah's community is. Like, how would you define what the community that you've built so far?
So if I look at the ideal Rastah customer, and if we sort of extrapolate that as a broader lexicon for the community, that person is someone who is extremely patriotic, attuned with their culture, a strong desire to be artistic, creative, and fashionable, and support projects and brands that elevate that identity that they hold. So that's the kind of customer that is probably the ideal. That's our mode. That's the ideal customer that we have. Someone who says, "Hey, I want to wear a Pakistani high-end brand rather than a Balmain, LV, or an Amiri, because that ends up being a point of discussion at a table for when I'm traveling or even with my friends and my family. And the product is good, the quality is good, and I can proudly say that this is a brand that, you know, was started in my own country." And I think that's the ideal sort of customer we have. And that's the customer that we need to sort of, you know, foster and grow as well. But at the same time, we also don't want to just rely on that customer base. We don't want to be the South Asian brand that is only catering to South Asians. We want to be the brand that is, you know, loved and adored and bought by non-South Asians as well, which is now sort of becoming the case. And very interestingly, you know, when we first started, a lot of Caucasians would shy away from buying Rastah products because they would be like, "Oh, is this cultural appropriation? Is tarah to nahi, us tarah to nahi hai?" And that fizzled out very, very quickly, you know. And it's so strange because you have this. We sort of live in this in this post-colonial hangover, and which functions on the inverse side as well, where the white man's guilt sometimes sort of prevents them from buying into, you know, different cultures because there's this feeling of, oh, like, am I crossing a line or whatnot?
Yeah.
And I think the way we sort of cracked that was that we took our heritage and our artisanship, completely deconstructed it, and created something completely new out of it. If we had branded the brand as a pure culture or heritage play, white people would probably not, you know, sort of buy it. There's a reason why you won't see non-South Asians, you know, walking down the street wearing shalwar kameez. Because there's this, oh, this is for a specific culture event or whatnot.
These conversations are brought to you by Kiss Bazaar. Kiss Bazaar is one of the leading BNPL platforms in Pakistan. Kiss Bazaar essentially आपको provide करता है different products on easy installments, whether you are a small business or whether you're an individual. अगर आपको अपने घर के लिए AC चाहिए, अपने घर के लिए फ्रिज चाहिए, अपने business के लिए बाइक्स चाहिए, अपने employees के लिए लैपटॉप्स चाहिए, phones चाहिए, ऑफिस के लिए सोलर चाहिए, घर के लिए सोलर चाहिए, Kiss Bazaar has a solution for you. Go on to kissbazaar.pk and find the right solution for yourself. Take me through a community moment that has profoundly impacted your brand.
Pop-ups, for sure.
Really?
First pop-up that we did in New York, back of a coffee shop, when we were broke, didn't really have anything. That's when we realized that when people come and meet us, talk about why they like the brand, how it makes them feel, how the product makes them feel, we were like, oh shit, we're on to something. And then we did another one in New York again. We've done numerous in New York. And in 2024, we did a 30-day pop-up in Soho. And that was just super profound because we had people coming in from Boston.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So.
And they were South Asians or they were all sorts of people?
South Asians, non-South Asians. So that's when we realized that the definition of community for us is much broader than just, you know, South Asians. It's people that actually believe in what the brand is doing and the kind of products that it's creating and how those products are making the members of that community feel. And that's why we want to do more of these pop-ups and just expand on that a bit more. And we actually now have certain releases that are only for certain community members. So we have secret drops that regular people can't buy. It's just, we have this WhatsApp group of like, I think around 500 or so people, like just die-hard fans of the brand. And we share everything with them, even when things are a year in advance of being produced. Like for example, we're coming out with a sneaker. हम पिछले 2 साल से अपनी community के साथ वो share कर रहे हैं उसकी सारी development. And we do these secret drops.
और वो सिर्फ उनके लिए ही होगा.
वो जूते जो हैं वो सबके लिए होंगे, but उसकी जो progress है वो हम community के साथ जो है ना बड़ी देर से share कर रहे हैं. उस community के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा ऐसे releases होते हैं जो कि सिर्फ वो लोग खरीद सकते हैं, कोई और नहीं ले सकता. So that's how we're sort of incentivizing our community as well. And we want to do more community initiatives. Like when we have retail stores, inshallah, so we ideally want to have a floor or a space where it's just for a select, sort of group of people. A certain merchandising segment that is only for certain Rastah members club, sort of members, and those are like sort of the kind of things that we're now.
And how does one become part of this community? Like, it's people who have been bought a certain number. Like, isn't this what Hermes does? Like
people that have bought a certain amount, definitely. So we have like a loyalty, loyalty thing going on as well, where you have different tiers. So if you're within a certain tier, then you automatically get invited to be a part of that WhatsApp group. And then if you're very active within that WhatsApp group, we're privately engaging with you as well and getting your feedback and your advice. And just really sort of listening to what the customer likes, especially these people, because they're like the ones that really, really support us. For example, I'll give you an example. Abhi, we had a crazy November. We did close to $1 million in November during the holiday season, not just the month, but in like a two-ish week period. And we moved warehousing from Pakistan to the US for all international orders. Our USA warehouse ended up receiving our inventory late because of, bad weather, backlog, tariffs, and all the brands around the world are trying to get their products into warehouses in time. And we missed our shipping date. So we had to ship products by the 5th, or I think it was the 5th of December or something. And we missed it by 2-3 weeks.
Oh, so and Christmas presents and Christmas.
It's just a lot of, not all of the orders were delayed, but like a big chunk of them were delayed. And we had just 2 members on our customer support team, thousands of emails, close to 150 new tickets being opened every single day. And then we realized, oh shit, chalo theek hai, paise to bana liye, but we have to service these customers as well. Exactly. And we can't give them a definitive timeline either. And we can't, respond, because those tickets were such unique tickets that they needed like an actual human's attention. Otherwise, we would have gone agentic with an AI bot or something. And that was just super, super like sort of frustrating, because you've done all of the hard work. You've spent the whole year. November wali jo collection hai, usko almost pura saal lag jata hai usko banane mein. You've done the hard work. You've acquired so many customers. And as you're aware, customer acquisition cost is like, a thing. And if that CAC becomes sunk, you lose out on the customer lifetime value. So we had to go in, and a lot of customers, we had to either, add in free gifts, refund their orders, making sure that we don't lose these customers. And probably a lot of them we would lose, but ये जो हमारा WhatsApp group है, जिसमें ये जो community members हैं, new people that were added to this WhatsApp group didn't know that this is a place where we just discuss ideas and concepts. So it became a place of where's my order, because they didn't realize the sort of pretext of why this sort of group exists. And it became this like CS playground. I ordered 2 weeks ago, and I'm calling people myself, going into the order sheet, being like, hey, what's up? Where did you order from? Okay, you know what? I'm going to add a gift for you. Hi, this is Zain, the CEO, this, that.
Do people appreciate that? Like speaking to you? Okay, fine, chalo, at least they care.
I don't really... मैं तो सोचता भी नहीं हूँ कि वो appreciate करते हैं कि नहीं करते. At the end of the day, the reality is that sort of the buck stops on me, right?
Of course, I get it, yeah.
have to, in a startup, sometimes you have to step in as the CEO, even if it means fixing the toilet, for example. So I would call this fixing the toilet. And I would have early mornings where I would call customers in the US and whatnot. Talha would be calling customers and whatnot. I could have easily been like, nahi, mera kaam nahi hai, CS ka kaam hai, main nahi karunga.
वही
But वो अगर mindset होगा तो फिर you can't grow, because end पे कल को मैंने board को जवाब देना है. कल को मैंने अपने आप को जवाब देना है. And I firmly believe that you live and die by your own sword. So we had this funny thing where, you have these new customers added to this WhatsApp group that is a community WhatsApp group. And they're like, मेरा order किधर है, ये किधर है, 2 हफ्ते हो गए हैं, कोई जवाब नहीं दे रहा, ये नहीं हो रहा, वो नहीं हो रहा. And you have the OG people that are part of that WhatsApp group coming in and being like, hey guys, this is not even us, them being like, this is not a place for you guys to talk about your orders and whatnot. This is a place where we discuss ideas. We've been supporting Rastah for 3-4 years. And if your order is delayed, from our experience, we can tell you that not only are you going to get it, but they're going to do right by you. Either you're going to get a gift or you're going to get some sort of a voucher for your next order, and they're going to compensate you. So you had old community members come in and have this conversation with new customers saying, hey, this is not a CS playground, and this is not the appropriate place to do it. So those community members, these are like sort of your OG people that even if you make mistakes, they will stick by you because they understand that you're a new brand and you will make mistakes. We've made bigger mistakes than this, and they will continue to support you. These are people where if you have issues with the quality issues with the product, they're not gonna, sort of rant and complain about it. They're gonna give you valuable feedback. Okay, hey, I bought this hoodie or this jacket. Iski seam mein ye issue aa gaya tha. Iska color yahan se bleed ho raha tha. So I think next time you should do this, this, this. And that's the kind of feedback that is super, super important.
What would you say has been the most expensive learning?
Most expensive learning, probably this was a very expensive learning, because the thing is that the more money you make, in a short amount of time, the bigger if there is a setback or failure, the bigger the impact of that is. So this was very expensive. And then another expensive learning was 2025, we overproduced inventory, and by a long shot. And we also missed our production date. So we had hoodies and sweatshirts that were supposed to be in our warehouse in Feb that ended up being in our warehouse in April, May. And I'm talking over $500,000 of inventory. Season bhi chala gaya, and now suddenly you don't have the cash flow to finance other inventories, but you're sitting on, for that time period, junk. Essentially, because
summers aa gaye aur aapke paas hoodies padi hui hain.
And that was very tricky. Aur is tarah ke to, like I've had so many moments like this.
But what has been the learning around this? Like, has it been like better supply chain management? Better supply chain management.
Better supply chain management. Always pre-plan as much as you can. And the route to success outside of creativity, agar hum ops ki baat kare na, the marketing calendar is your best friend. If you can plan out the year in advance and realize that the year is made of peaks and troughs, you have moments. So this year we have moments. You have Eid. You have
Eid is a big woe.
Eid is a big moment as well from a sale point of view. You have the FIFA World Cup coming up. You've got the T20 World Cup coming up. You've got Basant coming up for the first time in God knows how many years.
Very long time, yeah.
You have award season. You have the Met Gala. You have so many different moments. And to be a good operator, if you can plan those moments a year in advance, then you will be so much better equipped to tackle the year with grace and with a measure of assuredness, which is so very important. I remember last year, for the first half of last year, we were very reactive, where we would make very reactive decisions. 2 महीने के लिए, अगले 2 महीने जो है ना बस ये लॉन्चेस हैं, बट रेवेन्यू टारगेट्स तो ये हैं, कैश फ्लो नीड्स ये हैं, तो अच्छा ये भी कर लेते हैं. Oh, that's a very bad way of thinking. And now we're getting into a habit of planning collections a year in advance and planning new product development 2 to 3 years in advance.
3 years in advance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you predict? So number one, how do you predict forecasts when you're doing, say, limited time, like limited drops, right? Because
Yeah.
that for me is like has always been a question. I mean, I can understand Uniqlo makes basics,
Yeah.
right? So उनके लिए बड़ा simple है, white
Yeah.
tee है, plain white tee है, कभी भी बिकेगी.
Yeah.
कोई ऐसी इसमें बड़ी चीज नहीं है. But you guys do something very different,
Yeah.
right? And especially when you're talking about events. So how do you forecast demand around this?
Picking your sweet spots, knowing where you know you're going to win, and
Yeah.
then sort of cautiously betting where you think you might win. And what I mean by that is that if you can keep the process as redundant as possible, there's a higher chance of winning.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that 80% of your efforts need to go towards making and producing things where you have a high likelihood that these are going to sell. And I'll give you an example of this. Let's say this jacket is a hot seller and I've sold over 200 units of this.
ठीक है.
But I also do not restock things, right? How do I recreate this moment again 2 to 3 months from now? And the thing that we try to do is that we try to keep things as redundant as possible, but still add a bit of design innovation. So what I'll do is I'll try and figure out why this jacket sold. Was it the fit? Was it the leather? Was it the paneling? Was it the color palette? If I can extrapolate that information, I can take the redundancies and then add in a bit of design innovation. So let's say this jacket sold because of the color palette and the fit. I'll make something very similar next season, but I'll add minute design differentials to make it still unique, and that way I'm hedging my bets. Now on the other side, let's say the 20%, let's say we're doing something completely new and left field. फिर उसमें एक बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ ये figure out करना है कि यार इसका मकसद क्या है? इस product को मैं पैसे बनाने के लिए बना रहा हूँ या ये marketing buzz के लिए? Now let's say पैसे बनाने के लिए. In that sense, it's very important to be cautious with what you put out and you don't overproduce, and you log everything that you've done. And let's say I've put out a chunky knit wool sweater that is quarter zip, frayed edges, and I made 50 units of it, and in 30 to 40 days we sold through 70 to 80% of our inventory. So we have markers within the team कि यार after X amount of days, अगर हमारा sell through इतना हो and the average units sold is this much and the age of the inventory is this much, that means that this idea was a win and we need to like sort of scale it up a bit more. On the flip side, there's sort of ideas that are losers.
Yeah.
But you don't want to just completely eliminate them. There might be a reason why those ideas might be losers. So you bring them back in a different way. And then on the other side, there are ideas that you put out just for the marketing of it. I'll give you an example. We had this patchwork ajrak jacket, and that was उसके अंदर हमने सबसे कम units बनाए थे. We only made 10 units of that article. Sold out in, I think, 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sold out in 5 minutes because you're like, yeah, ये तो बिकेगी ही नहीं. You know? So there's some things that you just, it's very hard to predict those things. And it's a balancing act of taking risks and doing things that continue to work. Trends की आपने बात की. Trends को forecast करना बहुत मुश्किल है, और typically we don't even go down that route of forecasting trends.
Like what is trendy? Like you don't really care about.
We don't really care about it that much.
Typically fashion world में किस तरह होता है? Like लोग जाते हैं मिलान में देखते हैं कौन क्या क्या डाल रहा है, and then you're like, okay, fine, this is now going to be the new.
So there's two different kinds of brands over here, right? There's merchandising brands, your Zaras, your Outfitters, and your Lamas, that are completely trend and merchandising forecast driven.
सही है.
कि यार ये बिक रहा है, ये बनाओ.
सही
ये
है.
बिक रहा है, ये बनाओ. Then there's brands like Margiela, Amiri, and whatnot, and those are the brands that make things, and they're like, we're gonna make this. This is going to be our brand identity. This is going to be our DNA. And we're going to market it so well. We're going to get the consumer so hooked onto this and sort of hack the consumer's brain, ke, hey, you need this. Where you suddenly created demand for something that didn't exist. And then those merchandising brands will start to make that as well. Iski example is I don't know if you remember, Balenciaga ne bahut der pehle they put out these sock sneakers, these like very fitted sock sneakers. Or Alaya is this brand that had these fishnet flats for women, and then those shoes were everywhere. They were at Steve Madden, they were at Zara, X, Y,
But
and Z.
that's the whole Zara model, right?
Yeah.
They will just very, very quickly. The whole innovation is supply chain and how quickly they can copy something, make it, and distribute it.
Exactly.
Like that's the beauty of the whole, how that whole entire business works. But so tell me something, like, how does it work? Like, so someone who's buying Rastah, when they go on the website, they go like, oh, this is what I've been looking for so long? Or is it the other way around? Most people just see that, oh, Rastah is cool and I'll go buy Rastah. Like, how does this, like, in your opinion, how does it work?
It's very different. And again, wo personas ki baat aa jati hai. There are customers that will go onto the website, randomly koi Germany se ya Canada se, and spend $4,000. And that's the first time they've been on the website.
Okay.
Because they simply they saw the content, they saw how the brand was positioned, and they loved the product, and they're like, oh shit, I would look good in this. I would feel a certain way about this. So personas jo hai na wo bahut zyada matter karte hain. But typically, on a broader case, you have a cycle of consumers being aware of the brand first. They engage with the content, they buy into the sort of identity of what the brand is, and then we sort of sell them the story and the hype of the brand. One thing that we do is that for each collection we have a wait list. So you have to sign up to the wait list to buy it early.
Okay.
And if you buy it early, you get a limited edition gift, or you get access to X, Y, and Z. You get access to the members club that we're talking about over here. Like if you're part of that wait list, you have a chance to sort of be part of that club. So we create every sort of collection that we put out, we try our best to create a moment around it. Not just keep product bik raha. Like people need to feel like, okay, a launch is coming. This is a moment. This is exciting. We are a part of it. And it goes back to the thing that I said, that consumers are selfish. They need to feel part of something. And creating that sort of hype around a collection is very important. And that attribution window, for some people can be months, for some people can be weeks. I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, you haven't bought Rastah yet.
Yeah.
But you've been within that ecosystem, right?
For sure.
And you're consuming that content. And maybe there's products that you like that you want to buy. But there's reasons that you're not buying them yet. For you, like we discussed, size, you want to see and touch and feel the product.
I want to see, because especially with something that's, say, a baggy hoodie, I don't know if it's a small, medium, large, mujhe kya fit aayegi, like mujhe bilkul idea nahi.
Exactly. Yeah. So same thing with so many other consumers, where different personas have different attribution windows. Some people have an attribution window of a few hours. For some it's 7 days, for some it's 30, for some it's 60, for some it's 90. And for us, we have to figure out how do we move people beyond that funnel. Because sort of customers to brand nahi banate. You have your customers, but then you also have, members of the audience that are watching the orchestra. And I would say you're a member of the audience that's watching the orchestra. You're equally as important as that customer. So the need to, and the desire on our part to continue to world build and market is equally as important for the customer, but also for someone like you that has bought into the brand, not monetarily, but from a support standpoint, right? So if we just focus on sales, forecast, merchandising, you would sort of lose the essence of the brand.
Yeah, and I'm also someone who would recognize somewhere wearing Rastah and would suddenly be like, okay, fine, this person has spent say 50K on something that they I clearly care about expressing themselves, right, through their clothes. So it does, the signaling would work on me, because even if I haven't bought into it yet, right, because I would understand whatever that person's trying to signal to quite an extent, being part of it. So. Is that what the journey typically looks like for customers? Like people are in the beginning lurkers, and then they start like saying, and then they buy their first piece, and then they become part of it. And maybe then do a lot of community members make content around it as well? And do you think that's part of the engine?
That's also part of the engine. Referrals is a big part of the engine. And at one point we had a post-purchase survey on our website, and around 20% of our customers buy through referrals. Not through like a Instagram referral link code or anything. A very organic referral के मैंने इसको refer किया, इसने देखा मुझे कि यार पहना हुआ है और उसकी quality ऐसी है, fit देख लिया कैसा लग रहा है कैसा नहीं लग रहा. That person liked the quality and they're like, yeah, you should check it out, it's Rastah. Referral customers tend to have a very high first order AOV. And so those referrals are very, very important to us. Again, building that sense of community is super, super important from a referral standpoint as well. And I think that in 2026, this is what I'm betting on. 2026, the impact of celebrity endorsements will have a much smaller coefficient on our brand and other brands. The impact of a community, story, founder story, and the process of the brand will have a much bigger impact. And we're seeing tailwinds of this within the broader luxury sector internationally as well. COVID में क्या हुआ? Luxury brands हो गई बहुत greedy because you had extra capital within the system because of monetary and fiscal policies within the United States, stimulus checks and whatnot. And post-COVID was a crazy boom, and it was the Wild West. We did a pop-up post-COVID in New York, and I saw it firsthand. I saw people walk into the pop-up that had never heard of the brand, and they were spending $2.5 grand.
Wow.
So you had these luxury brands get greedy, and you had the Pradas and the Diors of the world 2, 3, 4x their prices in 24 months. And then you have this pullback of the economy in 2024 where there's less cash in the system. And just talking about the US right now, because interest rates went up, consumers are spending less, tariffs are in place, Trump is in power, there's uncertainty around the economy, non-essential spending has suddenly gone down. And back in 2022, I remember London में or New York में, I would be walking past Prada and Dior, and I would see these lines outside of the store.
Okay.
And I would see the store, and I was like, the store is empty. I was like, what is going on? This is so unsustainable.
Yeah.
Like, this is massively unsustainable. Like, Prada loafers that would used to cost like $500-600 are now like $1,800. Leather good bags, जो हैं वो expensive हो गए हैं. And then you start to see these luxury brands, their year-over-year growth is starting to stall. You're seeing the collapse of big box retailers like Saks, online e-tailers like Essence. Consumer spending is going down, and consumers are now caring less about the brand, and more so they're more concerned about what they're buying, why they're buying it, what is the story behind it, and is this a product of value that I can hold on to? Does it have a story behind it? How does it make me feel? तो आज का जो 2025 और 2026 का जो consumer है ना, वो बहुत फर्क लेंस से सोचते हैं, खास तौर पे Gen Z. So I think 2026 you're going to see a big reset. This doesn't apply to Pakistan because Pakistan की fashion industry चलती ही एक बिल्कुल ही फर्क मॉडल पे है. But internationally in 2026, the brands that are going to win are the ones that are going to bet on community, the customer, storytelling, and the brands that are going to lose are going to be the ones that have been doing things the old way.
The traditional way.
Yeah.
And traditional way is what? Like me just hiring few models and doing just fancy glam shoots.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you an example. आज से कुछ साल पहले, a very curated feed of lookbook photos was the way to go.
Yeah.
ठीक है? हमने क्या देखा है पिछले 6-7-8 महीनों में कि वो जो lookbook photos है ना, people really don't care about them that much. And it's fundamentally to do with how the algorithm has changed as well. You need those lookbook images, but beyond that, your storytelling component needs to have a variety and a plethora of content that dives deeper into the DNA and the essence of the brand. That's why we've shifted our content strategy as well. We're doing more behind the scenes. We're doing more like sort of founder stories, where we're doing more raw content around the mistakes we've made, how we make XYZ. We're doing like cinematic, like directorial 3-4 minute dialogue videos. I don't know if you've seen, we did this video, Jen's Timothy Chalamet just make boy massage there. We're doing a lot more of that because we realized that the algorithm has fundamentally changed. पहले एक बहुत ही फर्क तरीके से जो algorithm था ना, लोगों को content serve करता था. Now the diversity of content that you put out is very important. Do those lookbook shoots. Put them on your feed, but you don't want your feed or your website to just be lookbook photos, because the way consumers discover brands now is very, very different to what it was.
Yeah, and I have a Instagram post of yours, and I'll read it, and I want to know. I think you've elaborated on it a bit as well, but if you could want to add something to it.
Yeah.
You wrote in July last year, 2025, to the new kids, things are changing, and so are perspectives. Build narrative and storytelling arcs that compound over time. Your biggest collateral will be your community and independence you foster. It is clear that the traditional echo chambers of fashion industry are rusting away, and new chapters are unfolding. I really think the brands that hone into their point of view and foster community will be the ones that win. The next decade will be about world building, not wonky merchandising calendars and big retail stores. For us, the North Star for the next 24 to 48 months is working on our own curated spaces, more to come on this, and category expansion into meaningful products. I also see a world where we create exclusively for community. More on this too. Keep grinding, folks. So so is this exactly what you meant by it?
Yeah.
And so you've also touched upon, say, storytelling arcs, right? What do you mean by say newer storytelling arcs that can compound over time?
So what I mean by that is find elements of your brand where think of your brand as this 5-10 year documentary project, or this social show, and think of avenues where you can talk about things that are unique to your brand and unique to yourself. And that might be the culture around your office. That might be your obsession with a certain way you do the product, why you do it, what are you going to do next, why is it important to you? Because we've been fed this idea of you need this, and this idea of opulence, but that narrative's now changing, and now consumers really want to connect with the story element of it, and the story element only exists if we are very personal with what we share. So 2024 और 2023 एक टाइम था जब founder led brands जो है ना वो बहुत ही वैल्यू ड्रिवन कंटेंट क्रिएट कर रहे थे कि यार मैंने XYZ किया तो मेरा बिजनेस ग्रो हो गया, मैंने ये करोगे तो ये हो जाएगा, ये करोगे तो ये हो जाएगा. That has fundamentally collapsed because of how AI is integrated into our lives now. If you want to access any value or information, you can simply go onto Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, and that will be a much bigger value driver than Zain telling you कि यार मैंने ये करोगे तो ये होगा. It's more valuable if Zain says, I feel this way about my brand, and because I feel this way, I did this, and because I did this, this ended up happening. So if you can share that on a very personal level, then I think you will start to build mini moats of those narrative arcs that I'm talking about. Our sort of narrative arc right now is these 2 to 4 minute mini films that we are doing, which is kind of like a social show for us, where we have employees become actors within these like actual films. Like अभी जो हमने recent film shoot की थी, हमने आरी पे shoot की थी. आपकी production team को पता होगा, और वो anamorphic lens पे shoot की थी.
सही.
और full, the camera was dollied and rigged and whatnot.
Oh wow, like for proper like movie production.
Yeah. And it was a 3.5 minute film, single camera. तो obviously उसके अंदर अगर 4 pages of dialogue हैं, मीनिंग के उसको शूट करने में हमें 10-12 घंटे लग गए थे. मीनिंग कि यार अगर एक डायलॉग इस पर्सपेक्टिव से शूट हो रहा है तो फिर वो आपके POV से भी होगा, मेरे POV से भी होगा, and all of the employees now suddenly had to become actors. And the script was written in a way to sort of bring to life real life sort of examples or stories that have happened at the Rastah office. So we've added these characters into the Rastah world, all of them wearing high-end, sort of Rastah clothes and whatnot.
It looked really nice. Like it looked very opulent as well.
Yeah, हमने office में shoot की थी.
Nice.
Yeah, we did the art direction for that in the office. So we're doing more of that. And the next layer of that would be to then add more characters into that. Maybe it's celebrities that we've worked with. Maybe it's customers. Maybe it's, XYZ or whatever. But expanding on that a bit more and really focusing on the storytelling side of it. The mistake people in Pakistan are making, the young kids that are starting brands, is कि किसी का कोई POV नहीं है, कोई point of view नहीं है. They do things because यार ये चल रही है तो हम भी ये कर लेते हैं. तो the idea to start a business is always कि हमने एक existing जो एक मार्केट बन चुकी हुई है उसका हमने मार्केट शेयर एरोड करना है, जो भी, which works to a certain extent in tech startups. You can arbitrage ideas in different economies. You could have the Uber of X or the DocuSign of X, and you could do that. But for fashion, it's very different. अगर आपका POV ही नहीं है, there's nothing that separates you.
These conversations are brought to you by KissBazaar. KissBazaar is one of the leading BNPL platforms in Pakistan. KissBazaar essentially आपको provide करता है different products on easy installments, whether you are a small business or whether you're an individual. अगर आपको अपने घर के लिए AC चाहिए, अपने घर के लिए फ्रिज चाहिए, अपने बिजनेस के लिए बाइक्स चाहिए, अपने एम्प्लॉइज के लिए लैपटॉप्स चाहिए, फोन्स चाहिए, ऑफिस के लिए सोलर चाहिए, घर के लिए सोलर चाहिए, KissBazaar has a solution for you. Go on to kissbazaar.pk and find the right solution for yourself. Merchandising maybe, because if we're all buying the plain white tee or the loose baggy pants, whatever, then doesn't matter अगर मैं outfitter से लूँ या Lama से लूँ, similar-ish चीजें ही आएंगी, right? ज़्यादा उसमें फर्क नहीं होगा. But streetwear में I think वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा वो तो होता होगा.
POV होना बहुत जरूरी है. और we don't have POV-led brands. Why is there not a streetwear brand out of Liari? Why is there not a streetwear brand that is exploring the subculture of wrestling in Pakistan? Why is there not a streetwear brand that is exploring the subculture of bike racing? मुझे बहुत लोग कहते हैं कि यार मैसेज के लिए बनाओ, मैं कहता है मैं मैसेज के लिए नहीं बना रहा, मैं अपना काम कर रहा हूँ. आपको कुछ मैसेज के लिए करना है तो आप बना लो यार जाके. किसने आपको रोका?
सही बात.
जाओ अपने आप पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू शेयर करो. मुझे क्यों कह रहे हो? आई एम डूइंग समथिंग एल्स. तो सब कल्चर्स की फैशन के अंदर एक कॉन्सेप्ट है नीश स्पिलओवर का. सुप्रीम जब शुरू हुआ था तो इट वाज ए स्केटिंग ब्रांड इन sort of New York, and the concept behind it was कि यार LA has a big streetwear sort of culture for surfers and whatnot. Why don't we have, you know, like a shop that the skaters of New York can come to, hang out, buy, you know, cool clothes
Meet each other,
to skate in, and that was the subculture. But in fashion, what happens is that you have this concept of niche spillover, where a subculture becomes so insular and so cool that the outside world is like, man, we want a piece of that. We want to buy into that. And you have that subculture erode into the mainstream. And that's how story-led, community-led brands sort of scale. Not from, अगर आपने top down करके मतलब scale करना है तो फिर your route is a merchandising play.
हाँ.
Then it's not the streetwear route. Because अगर आपका POV नहीं है और आप एक 3,000 रुपए की टी शर्ट बेच रहे हो जिसके ऊपर आपने अपनी खाला की उर्दू की पोएट्री छाप दी है तो ठीक है क्या होगा आउटफिटर्स आएगा लामा आएगा वो कहेगा यार ये कॉन्सेप्ट चल रहा है इसको 2500 में बेचो आप तो गए ना बिकॉज आपका तो कस्टमर सिर्फ वो उर्दू के लिए ले रहा था रास्ता वो अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकता अब वो जाके आउटफिटर्स लेगा आपकी तो ब्रांड मर गई तो वो सब कल्चर एक्सप्लोरेशन है ही नहीं.
And that's what, if you were to say start a new brand today, this is what you would do. Say Rastah exists, somebody else built Rastah. And now Zain is starting something new today. So this is what you would do? You would explore a new POV?
I would explore a very personal POV.
Okay.
For me, that is cinema. I love cinema.
Okay.
And that's why we make these little movies as well. I would literally just focus on my relationship with cinema and I would create a brand around that. And I would talk about why cinema is so important in the clothes that I make. And eventually with time, that niche will, people don't have the patience. I just cannot I've had days and nights where I've went to bed and I've woken up in the middle of the night with a panic attack, walking out of my bed to the fridge and opening it and being like, where the hell am I? And I think ये जो young generation and I'm sorry to say but they don't have the ability to or the patience to suffer. If I wish something upon every young person watching this, I wish immense suffering upon you.
Immense suffering.
In the best way possible is what I mean.
Like with something with...
Yeah, where you actually you go through so much pain and suffering that you realize the potential that lies within you, and I think that's very important.
No, that's what shapes you, right?
Yeah,
it's not going to be the easy times that are going to shape you or bring your true character out. Completely agree. Are there any Pakistani brands that you're seeing come up, whether streetwear or not, that you would say buy from or you like them?
Yeah. Eastern wear mein Hussain Rehar is, I think, he's incredible.
Okay.
I think he is incredible and he's relatively new. When we did our pop-up in New York in 2024, I would ask people what other Pakistani brands do you know of. Hussain would always come up. Faraz Manan is another one.
Faraz has been around for a while, yeah.
New mein se, I'm trying to think. So there is a brand, but it's very small and it's not that active anymore. And it's by an ex-Rastah employee.
Okay.
It's called Cult.
Okay, I've seen it. Yeah, Karachi में नहीं Cult मैंने नहीं देखा यार.
वो Cult एक और है.
हाँ, वो Cult store है actually.
वो store है. हाँ. And he is doing something very interesting. And if you guys haven't bought from him, please go check it out. Much cheaper than Rastah, so your audience a lot of them can afford it as well. But because he is an artist and a graphic designer, he's channeling that into his work. But then again, operationally, बच्चे को कुछ चीजें सही करने वाली हैं, but go support him. I think that there's potential there for them to be very, 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 very good. The other brand that I really like is, I think it's Cyanide, Sin Studio.
Okay.
very interesting silhouettes, an immense focus on form and functionality, really good photography. I really like that brand. Another one is Mo by Mohsin Tawasuli.
Okay.
I think that's one to really watch out for.
Okay.
Like,
nice.
if I would say what is the top of this list, it would be Mo by Mohsin Tawasuli. Because Mohsin used to work at Sana Safinaz.
Yeah.
And I think he was probably the only true creative director that Pakistan had. Pakistan में creative directors का concept नहीं है. मतलब सेठों वाला concept है कि वो सेठ ने designers बिठा दिए और वो कर रहे हैं.
सारे employees होते हैं.
Yeah.
Majority.
Yeah. Mohsin was a true creative director, and he has amazing taste. So his brand is another one that I think can sort of level out. But yet potential बहुत ज़्यादा है.
But internationally, which brands do you like? So which brands for two different things? One is the craft and one is the community. So let's start with craft. Internationally, which brands like Rastah would you be like, yeah, they make great product, like product you would want to buy and be part of that community as well?
There's a lot of Indian brands. Karthik Research is a good friend of mine. Phenomenal work, immense focus on slow manufacturing. I think most of his pieces use zero electricity to produce.
Wow.
He's done amazing. That's one. Japanese brands are, creme de la creme.
Yeah.
Visvim, Capito, these guys are just like, they are obsessed with product.
Japanese do everything really well.
Yeah.
Like they're the final boss. Like if you are talking about culture, they can get into any culture and they will just make it better than all your people. Like
this is a very patient game. They have been outliers for the past 2 decades. Yoji Yamamoto, everybody knows him now, but 2 or so decades ago, he was not part of the mainstream fashion conversation, and it's because of the fact that patience plays a big part in all of this. And Denzel Washington ki ek quote hai, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you'll get a haircut. And that's what Yoji did. He's an old guy, but he focused on craft, product, story, and did it over 3 decades. And now he's getting his flowers. So ये एक reality है where in the arts you have to be so embroiled within the process where you are outcome agnostic. You're severely outcome agnostic, where the process fuels you so much you do not care for what the outcome is. And fashion is one of those slippery arts where fashion as a whole is I wouldn't say fashion is an art, but it requires an artist at the helm of it to make it work.
Fashion. I mean, I would say fashion would. I mean, style would be art.
Style is different.
Yeah,
style is different. Fashion is very different.
Yeah,
right. They're two very, very different things.
Which brands do you think have done the community piece extremely well?
Nude Project, Spanish brand. I think they do over $30 million in revenue, and they just stripped all of the rules that you would apply to a traditional fashion brand and completely bootstrapped. Represent, UK-based brand, have done the community part really well. But Nude Project is like right up there. If anybody starting a brand in Pakistan wants a blueprint for an affordable brand that can scale and have community, look at Nude Project. Yeah. But fashion के अलावा यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा और brands और businesses हैं जो कि उस चीज़ में बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं. Third Culture को आप ले लो.
Third Culture, बिल्कुल.
It's a phenomenon.
Job.
Like, we didn't have a coffee drinking culture outside of Gloria Jeans and Coffee Bean ho gaya or whatnot. To come in and completely disrupt that market.
Create a new category, really. Specialty coffee. Really.
Yeah.
They're the ones who, in Pakistan, started
and community first.
Huh.
Emphasis on community. A space where people want to come in, hang out and
third
chill.
Space, yeah.
Yeah. उसके अलावा वो कौन सी cookie वाली brand है यार?
Crumble.
I really like their marketing.
They've done a good job. Yeah, very creative.
Yeah. So, these are people that did something because they believed in it. Not they were outcome. I firmly believe they were outcome agnostic, and they went out and they were like, you know what, F it, we're gonna just enjoy the process and create a memorable experience.
And how are you thinking about your retail presence? Like, you don't have any yet, right?
No.
So, and this was something we discussed off camera, but for the benefit of the audience, like, what are you thinking about in terms of the first Rastah retail store? Because I'm quite excited about it, because I would, like I said, like, I would not expect it to be a typical dukaan, like a retail wali.
No.
I would expect it to be an experience. So when can we expect something? Because I think I'm holding off of buying something from Rastah.
So it depends on where we open it first. If we open it Lahore, तो वो probably शायद इस साल ही हो जाए. अगर तो न्यूयॉर्क हमारा पहला स्टोर खोलता है, तो that will be probably either very late into this year or early next year. But जहाँ पे भी खोलेगा, an element of experience, community, and gravitational point. I think what you're going to see in the next few years is कि retail stores के अंदर ना एक nucleus की presence बहुत ज़रूरी होगी. और वो nucleus जो है वो आपका merchandise नहीं हो सकता. It needs to be something else. Either there's a hospitality component. There's a food and beverage component. There's an activity component. So it could be like a sports club or whatever. There is a listening component. We're seeing a lot of like listening cafes, bahir. But it has to have a nucleus. I can't tell you what that nucleus is right now,
course,
but it will exist in that form. And there will definitely be a hospitality overlap with it. There will definitely be a members only overlap with it. There will definitely be a sort of experiential discovery part of it, where as you go through the store, you aren't just seeing clothes. I want consumers to see the journey of the brand. So I want that store to sort of play like a museum, like the Uffizi gallery, where you might get a coffee, but then you're walking and seeing a bunch of other things as well.
No, that's very interesting. I mean, I would actually really look forward to doing that. But one thing that I'm just jumping back to, because I'm thoda distracted ho gaye the, was key metrics.
Yeah.
Now, on the business side, how are you measuring success?
Very, very simple. The first one is net new customer growth, obviously. Then it is retention rate. Then it is the growth of your active customer segment. These are customers that have bought in the last 365 days. Is that number growing healthily year over year? And then one of the core key metrics is a cohort analysis of your customers' 1 and 2 year lifetime value. LTV for us for any brand is, the biggest core key metric. And for a small label, 1 year LTV can sometimes be deceiving. So you have to go into 2 and 3 year LTV. And for anybody watching, LTV is basically, 1 year LTV would be the average lifetime value that a customer gives to you within a given period of time. So let's say you do $1 million in the last 365 days and 10,000 unique customers. Your LTV would be that order revenue divided by the number of customers. So that metric for us is very important. And seeing कौन से वो cohorts हैं that have the strongest LTV. कुछ customer cohorts होते हैं जो junk होते हैं. So there are like stingy customer cohorts as well.
What does that look like?
What that looks like is a customer that will only spend $70 तक, और वो भी मर आके, और उसके बहुत नखरे होंगे. इसमें ये मसला, इसमें ये है, मुझे ये कर दो, मुझे वो कर दो, ऐसे कर दो, and will probably never buy again.
Okay.
That's a bad customer cohort. a good customer cohort is someone जिसका bucket size थोड़ा बड़ा है and जिनकी purchase frequency is within that sort of 30 to 90 day range. Because उनकी LTV automatically sort of साल के हिसाब से एक तरह से 70-80% हो जाती है. In this business, there's two ways of winning. Either you have a very high gross margin, or you have a 1-year LTV multiplier of 2x. And what I mean by that is, let's say your first order was $100, and आपकी साल की LTV जो है वो 200 है. That's a very good case because I've multiplied your first order LTV by 2x over the year. Because पहले order पे typically brands जो हैं, खास तौर पे digital heavy brands जो हैं, वो अपनी बहुत ज़्यादा margin forgo कर जाती हैं on the customer acquisition side. So where you make the money is on the LTV side, which is very important. Our business model is a bit of both, where we are high margin. Our LTV lift isn't 2x, but it's not bad either. It's somewhere in the 30 to 60% range. But that's 1-year LTV. That metric is super important. And figuring out कि यार कौन से वो cohorts हैं जो बहुत अच्छा develop कर रहे हैं. इन cohorts को हमने nurture किस तरह करना है? ये cohorts खरीद क्यों रहे हैं? किस तरह के products ले रहे हैं? इस तरह के और cohorts और कस्टमर्स हमने कहाँ से जाके ढूंढने हैं. ये जो 2 नंबर्स हैं ना, ये बहुत बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी हैं. फिर उसके बाद जो मैं कहूँगा इससे भी ज़्यादा ज़रूरी नंबर है इज़ व्हाट इज़ योर LTV ऑन अ ग्रोस लेवल. सो लेट्स से आपकी LTV थी $200. अगर मैं अपनी सारी कॉस्ट ऑफ गुड्स निकाल दूँ इस LTV में, तो फिर आपकी एक ग्रोस लेवल पे LTV क्या है कि एक साल में एक ग्रोस लेवल पे how much money are you giving to the business, and if I weigh that against how much it costs me to acquire you as a customer, that will give me the sort of gross level profitability of you as a customer within a 1-year period, and then seeing what that looks like from in a 2, 3, 4-year horizon as well.
And is this why repeat customers are more important, because then the CAC gets distributed or like gets eliminated, right?
Yes.
So आपकी profitability margin बढ़ जाता है.
Yeah. And it's a balancing act of, obviously you have to add new customers into the funnel, but you also have to keep on nurturing your repeat customers. Fashion is sort of weird in the sense that you will never have amazing retention. Yeah. It's not like a protein powder or Dove का साबुन नहीं है कि आपकी retention बहुत अच्छी है. कुछ customers हैं जिनकी आपकी life cycle सिर्फ 6 महीने होगी, साल होगी, 2 साल होगी, उसके बाद they're done. So you have to keep feeding in new customers into the pipeline, and you have to have category expansion. So footwear, leather goods, these are LTV drivers in sort of the long term. So these are the metrics that, from the business standpoint, are super important to us.
And these are new categories you're also expanding into?
Yeah.
The ones that you mentioned, so leather goods, footwear, etc. Uske andar jaake.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Last couple of questions. Also mindful of time. If I want to work at Rastah today, say if I am a young student who aspires to come into this industry and all, what do I need to do?
You need to have really great attitude.
Okay, that's like number one. That's how you hire?
Yeah, you need to have a willingness to learn, a willingness to make mistakes. You need to leave your ego at the door.
Okay.
And you need, any new kid that comes into Rastah, I tell them I ask them very bluntly, are you ready for long hours? There are days where you will feel like shit. Are you ready to suffer for the next 3 to 5 years? Are you willing to learn as much as possible? Are you willing to juggle different things? Are you willing to do 100% and not get applauded for it? ये बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ है. You know, I've encountered a lot of young people that come in and they give 100%, and then expect applause or flowers. It's like, no, that's what you're being paid to do. You'll get applauded when you do 120%.
What does that signify to you? Like, why? So, because when I listen to it, for me, it is like, if you don't need applause, it is because you are intrinsically motivated human.
Yeah.
Right? आपके लिए motivation internal है. You're not doing things just to please someone. You're doing
Validation,
things because आपको वो चीज़ करनी है. And it ties in with your own sense of purpose, your goals, etc. So is that how you see it as well?
Yeah, I think that this new younger generation has some amazing qualities where they care a lot about what they do than our generation, I would say. You know, they deeply care for the content that they consume, the projects that they support. They're very activist in that nature, but because attention span itna kam hai, they don't have the patience to sort of grind it out. And I think one thing that you just said was around, remind me again.
Internal motivation.
Yeah, internal motivation. Money cannot just be the motivation for you to work somewhere. It needs to be something other than money. It needs to be something that is about the process. और वो आज के बच्चों में नहीं है. It's more so कि like फलां ये कर रहा है, फलां ने ये कर लिया तो मैंने भी ये करना है, मेरे दोस्त वो कर रहे हैं, मुझे साल में ये करना है, अब फिर मैंने 2 साल में मास्टर्स करना है, ये करना है. Figuring out what you want from life, I think, as a young kid is very important. And this younger generation, I think, has a very conflated sense of time. Very conflated sense of time. They're not able to think in terms of half decades and decades. You know,
I
they think in
most
terms
people,
of,
to be very honest.
I don't know. Maybe I just had to teach that to myself. Ke, you know, delay gratification as much as possible. But the younger kids, I would just tell them, please, if you're in the age bracket of 20 to 25, you literally have so much time to go out there and fail miserably, fail fast, embarrass yourself in front of the world. If you're working somewhere, do as much as you can, take on as much as you can, experiment with as much as you can. If you feel like you're unhappy at a job, leave that job. Go work somewhere where you feel like you will have the ability to do and try new things, and check your ego at the door. Focus on building your skills and take your time with it. Be immensely, ruthlessly patient, and like I said, suffer.
What skills are you hoping to build for yourself in the upcoming near future?
For myself, I think I definitely want to be able to delegate even better.
Okay.
Another skill that I really want to build is understanding the psychology of the people that work for me and why they work for me. I think that's very important. A sense of empathy, because आपके जो employees होते हैं, they have lives and worlds of their own. They have kids, they have families, they have ambitions. And as a CEO, if you want to be a really good CEO, you got to know everything. You got to be tuned in, tapped in, and you got to be severely empathetic. You can only take your employees so far as long as you know what drives them. So I think that is something that I would want to work on. And another thing is working more towards creating an environment that disproportionately enables creativity and risk-taking. That's harder said than done.
Yeah, because all creativity, I would imagine, would be vulnerability, right? You are, when you take that leap of faith, you have no idea whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
Last question. How are you using AI? How is, say, Rastah using AI? And how are you personally using AI, if at all?
A lot.
A lot?
Every
Okay.
part of our workflow has AI integrated into it.
Even the creative part?
To some extent, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll give you an example. Ops se leke website, CS, everybody has sort of been anecdotally tasked and told that AI needs to be a part of your workflow. You need to figure out how it's going to be a part of your workflow. We are not going to tell you. You know, we all have brain cells. I hate it when people ask me Googleable questions. Go ask Google, don't ask me. Or go ask AI. Add it to your workflow. Design के अंदर इस तरह से research. So for example, let's say designers have an abstract idea of a collection, palettes and whatnot, and they don't have the time to go out and extrapolate all of that research. AI can help them guide that research. Sketches, fashion sketches, if you want to see what they might look like in a real life case, using AI to see a render of what that might look like in different materials. Uske baad, creating AI content is something that we are exploring a lot. We did an AI photo shoot, and that got a lot of appreciation and applause. It's a double-edged sword though, because right now we're living in a world where, you know, the sort of the creative industry is very much
Polarized,
in fear and against, polarized.
Yeah,
you know,
a lot
you
of
have two
people are
different
using it.
camps.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we did was that we did an AI photo shoot, but हमने सबको बताया कि this is an AI photo shoot. We collaborated with an AI artistic agency, and this was the concept behind it. These are the people behind the agency. It's run by a photographer and a fashion designer, and we were very transparent about it. Masla tab aata hai jab you're not like sort of transparent about it.
They're trying to sneak it in.
Yeah, you're trying to sneak it in, and we didn't want to do that. And that post got such good engagement. I think it has close to 1 million impressions or something.
That's pretty cool.
Like I think kitne 25-30 likes type hain uske andar. Did really, really well. But the reality is that the world is going to change so much in the next half decade that we cannot even possibly begin to sort of imagine. I don't know if you've seen the movie Babylon, but it's just sort of a stark reminder of how radical change can sometimes completely change and transform industries. That movie is about how in motion pictures, जब sound आया था, तो बहुत ज़्यादा ऐसे actors थे that sort of lost their jobs because they were never attuned to speaking in front of the camera, and it was all just like,
Yeah, it's all just like, yeah, exactly.
So, and everybody was like, oh, ये क्या है sound? Videos में sound? ये कौन देखेगा? कौन करेगा ये? Like,
Yeah.
what is this? ये वो flan. But the world changes, and we have to adapt with those changes.
So you're not someone who's like, yeah, I'm going to fight this. You're like, let me see how I can use this to the best.
No,
Yeah.
I feel like there is definitely a world where it's used irresponsibly. I feel like there will need to be checks and balances. I feel like we're going to live in a world where safety, security, and just like sort of accountability around how AI is used is going to be a completely different industry. I think there's going to be a world in the future where we will call simple इंसान की बनी हुई चीज artisanal, and everything else will be like AI produced. एक टाइम था जब obviously जब फैब्रिक पे प्रिंटिंग शुरू हुई मशीन्स की, तो people were very against that.
हाँ, कि एम्ब्रॉयडरी वाले का क्या होगा?
But उसकी वैल्यू बढ़ गई.
वैल्यू बढ़ के सही बात है.
तो एक टाइम आएगा जब जो बंदा हाथ से स्टिचिंग कर रहा है, जो इस वक्त हमारे लिए बहुत एक नॉर्मल है, एक बेस लाइन है, एक टाइम आएगा जब वो एक बहुत आर्टिजनल चीज हो जाएगी. There's going to be a time where robots are going to be making shit.
Yeah.
And humans are not going to be making shit. But जो आपको आज हुडी एक इंसान बना के दे रहा है और उसकी कॉस्ट आपको अगर $30-40 पड़ रही है, और AI जो बना के दे रहा है रोबोट वो $2 पड़ रही है, that human was not artisanal before.
Yeah.
He was just part of the means of production. That human is going to become artisanal. block printers in the 1800s were not artisanal. It was just how it was. Nobody said in the 1800s, "Okay, oh, this is artisanship." You know, it's only when you create levers of comparison that happens. So I think a lot of human-led creativity will be immensely appreciated as well, because there will be a dichotomy of, you know, what's AI and what's human.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But Zain, thank you so much.
Thank you
so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
I got to learn quite a bit, and looking forward to what Rastah has in store.